Well, hello everyone, I'm Postmaster Radio, and it's time to bring on the funny. You're listening to Ujokes Weekly, the podcast highlighting Jonathan Mangum's virtual comedy show, Ujokes, where comedians plus the audience, they all compete against one another for the best joke. It is comedy gold at your fingertips. Simple as that. And just before we get started with this week's podcast, a little bit of a quick note for those of you wondering where the hell I was last week, because there was no new Ujokes podcast last week. Well, that's the thing, because as of now, even though this podcast is called Ujokes Weekly, and even though new Ujokes shows will still be every Monday night, next one coming, by the way, January 18th, at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific, the podcast is now going to release new shows every 2 weeks. So I just wanted to give you the heads up that after this week's edition of Ujokes Weekly, the next official podcast will not be until Tuesday, January 26th. Just wanted to give you guys that reminder for those of you that do not already know. But now, let's get this show on the road. This week, we have 2 new Ujokes shows to highlight, one featuring Thoeming and rebeccastevens, yet another married couple on the Ujokes show. That was a last week's show, of course. We'll also be talking about this week's show with Jessemackey and Chris Mackenzie. 4 great comedians, 2 shows, though only one top 5 countdown is among us, and keep listening until the very end for the Ujokes Awards plus Ujokes Extras. One of those jokes actually in Ujokes Extras was one of my own, but I only consider the jokes that I hear from the comedians and the ones, of course, that I see in the comment section on YouTube and Facebook, or at least those that get picked by Jonathan's producer, Josh, because if I were to consider my own jokes, let's be honest, I would be totally biased and pick my own, even if they did not get picked by Josh. So basically that all saves us a lot of headaches. Oh, and a couple of other quick things. If you missed the most recent edition of Ujokes Weekly, catch up now. The link to that podcast is in the description. And as always, to continuing listeners, brand new ones too, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to Ujokes Weekly. It really means a lot. But now it's time to get this show on the road for realsies this time. And we start with the top 5 countdown. My 5 favorite jokes from both of these respective Ujokes shows. It's all compiled into one countdown, and we begin right at the bottom, spot number 5. This goes to Jessemackey. Not one of my favorites, to be honest, from his show with Chris, but a pretty good one nonetheless. This was from a game called Whatsitmean. You know how that works. Based on the totally made up word, which this time was hagjank, you need to come up with the funniest definition imaginable. Jesse kind of did a good job at that. I gotta give him props for this one.
To me, this was what I hear. My son is recently into BMX biking and skateboarding and those kinds of things. This is the sound I hear when he goes flying over the handlebars or takes a big, beef on his skateboard is, hagjank! That's what happened.
I feel it. I felt it when you said that.
You see?
Yeah, I think that clip pretty much speaks for itself, but pretty good joke from Jesse, not too shabby. Moving on up to spot number 4 on the countdown, here is where we get to you guys, the Ujokes audience. Now, this is from Dumbest Answer. The question this time around was, where does dust come from? And the audience joke that was picked, shout out to, from YouTube, Cassie P, houseflies farting. Houseflies farting. Yeah, you know what? Dumb answer, sure, but honestly, the more I think about it, it may actually make sense. And I know what you're thinking. The horror! Something on Dumbest Answer is actually not a dumb answer. Oh, the humanity! And so on and so on. But yeah, aside from that little, maybe that is where dust comes from. Now I'm just thinking about it. Houseflies farting. I mean, it's there. It's a theory. It doesn't have to be true, but oh, good golly, what am I saying? Still a great joke, though, from Cassie. Now, at spot number 3 on the countdown, back to Jesse and Chris's show. The spotlight now is on Chris Mackenzie for a game called, and to be honest, I totally forgot about this game up until yesterday, djwho. And yeah, this game probably hasn't been played in forever. I don't know when was the last Ujokes episode to feature this game, so you probably don't know it. In djwho, based on the picture shown, for the picture of... I don't know how to put it, because keep in mind, this is Jonathan's producer, Josh, we're talking about. He's the one in charge of these picks, so he may know better than I do. But this is just basically a guy in a trash bin. I don't know if he was the trash that got taken out. I don't know if he is a trashy DJ, but Chris's answer for this possible DJ makes sense to me.
Well, I've seen this guy in the club a lot. Actually, his name is DJ Suckbutt.
Oh.
Literally. It's down the street.
What song does he like to play, Chris?
Well, he likes bottoms up and bottoms down. Bottoms all over town.
Classic hits.
No surprise at all that this was the winning joke. Congrats, Chris, my man. But now, here's a game that I actually am a lot more familiar with. Spawn number 2 on the countdown. Back to the audience. This is for Caption This. Still on Chris and Jesse's show. And for the picture of 2 foxes. A great joke? Yes, it was. Not the winning joke, but what you gonna do? Craig UK on YouTube. For fox sake. Seriously, sometimes the simplest things, for fox's sake, sometimes those simple things, they should win the game, they do not. Maybe in my case, but again, we're coming to that later in Ujokes Extras. Either way, congratulations to Craig from the UK. You were robbed of that win. I'm just going to say that from now. I know that comment may make it seem like the audience is a little bit more biased, but trust me, if we were biased, then the comedians would not have any wins at all. Trust me on that. Anyway, great joke from Craig. And now, spawn number 1 on the countdown. This is really interesting, because I don't think we've ever had something like this on Ujokes Weekly in quite a while. But at spawn number 1, I cannot give it to just only one joke. I gotta give it to the entire game. And if you're wondering, yes, this is the point where we finally come to Thoeming and rebeccastevens. This was the last game played from the night. Don't ask me why there was no last show's best for that game, because it's kind of a long story. Let's just get to the jokes at hand. And by the way, the picture for this game of Nice Moves, a guy in a cat mask, moving and grooving. We start with Rebeccastevens.
Well, my grandparents actually danced to this in their wedding in 1930. It's the well-known dance called the litter box step.
Nice. I like it. Also known as the litter bug, I believe.
Oh yeah, Rebecca already getting this game off to a strong start. Tough act to follow, but Thoeming, I gotta admit, this was well played as well.
This one's still pretty popular with the kids. It usually follows drop that kitty down low. This one's actually raise that kitty up high.
I love it.
But then you have angelaroseneder as the audience pick, making this game truly a triple threat in the gold mine of comedy. Again, angelaroseneder from YouTube. Catterday Night Fever. Catterday Night Fever. And oh my god, what a game to end that episode of Ujokes with Norm and Rebecca. Well done to you two, and well done, Angela, as well. All 3 of you had great jokes, and that's what made this game of Nice Moves 100% hilarious. And with that being said, that is it for the top 5 countdown. Now let us move on to the Ujokes Awards for additional highlights in the battle of virtual comedy. Now, this first award of the night, Comedian of the Week, usually I am able to narrow it down to only one, but in this case, even though, no offense to Norm, Rebecca, Jesse, and Chris, I have never heard of these 4 comedians, it amazes me how much of a threat all 4 of them were. So I can't pick just one in this case, because all of them did a fantastic job. Let's just make it a 4-way tie. We will leave it there. However, if you do have your own personal pick, let me know on Twitter and Instagram at Postmaster Radio, and who knows, maybe we will settle this 4-way time, but not today. For Game of the Week, the next award in the Ujokes Awards ceremony, I am going to give it to Nice Moves. For fairly obvious reasons, plus just the fact that all 3 jokes from Rebecca, Norm, and Angela were perfect. Pun fully intended. Next up is the Audience Award. This goes to the best joke from the YouTube and or Facebook audience. And you know what, folks? We have a tie between, still on Nice Moves, angelaroseneder's Saturday Night Fever was too much, and I mean that in the best way possible. Plus, the joke that should have won Caption This, in my humble opinion, Craig in the UK's For Fox's Sake. Those two jokes were exceptionally funny. And finally, we have the Mangum moment, because of course this is Jonathan's show too. I can't not have an award named after him, and in this case, going back to Norm and Rebecca's show, right before the last show's best segment, there was a bit of an ill-timed factor with the graphics, and I'm not sure if Jonathan was rambling for 1 second too many, or if Josh, the producer, just pushed the button at the wrong time, but the graphic played early. Jonathan tried to, like Jonathan was saying, time for last shows, and then suddenly the graphic just started playing, and then there was this whole thing with the graphic starting and stopping until everyone just in unison sings best. Trust me, guys. Trust me when I tell you that that moment was very funny. And if you don't believe me, go back to episode 56 of Ujokes. Near the end, during the last show's best intro, you will see for yourself. And with that being said, that's it for the Ujokes Awards. Almost done with this week's Ujokes podcast, but of course, still a couple of things left to do, one of which involves highlighting the Ujokes Extra. So let's get to it. As I mentioned in the beginning, I only consider for the countdown and the Ujokes Awards jokes that I have heard, not jokes that I have submitted, because then otherwise I'd be totally biased. Extremely so. And this is where we get to the first Ujokes Extra. From Norm and Rebecca's show, there was a game called Dream Interpretation, where based on the pic shown, which in this case showed a man with a jellyfish-like kite, and in my case, kite being the key word, you need to come up with what you would be thinking subconsciously if that pic were to pop up in your dream. What would it mean? And my joke, which got picked by Josh, you really need to fix your kite. I honestly did not think that joke would be picked, but hey, you know what? As someone in the YouTube chat said that night, sometimes the simpler jokes are the better ones, and it turns out the winning joke, yes, my joke, won that game. Hard to believe it too, I know, but I'm glad I was able to put another Ujokes win in my pocket. That was nice. Now moving on to the second of our Ujokes Extras. This is for Chifo Sanchez, and he was actually last show's best from yesterday's Ujokes show. And just to clarify the whole last show's best thing, see, not everyone can compete on Ujokes Live. Sad to say, but it is true. If you watch the show after the broadcast and you think, oh shoot, I have a great joke, why wasn't I competing live? Well, you can still submit your joke and hope that your joke is picked. And if it is, you may be invited to come on the next Ujokes show and compete in the final game. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Now, you can submit your joke, of course, in the YouTube comment section or in the Facebook comment section, depending on whichever platform you typically use for Ujokes. But Chifo's joke, remember the Nice Moves game? Same game, same pick, Chifo's joke, feline dancing. Feline dancing. Fantastic, Chifo. And finally, one more audience extra. Shout out to one of the funniest guys ever on Ujokes, Josh Begley, from a game that's actually new this Ujokes season called Ruined Date, where based on the picture of the two clowns, you have to come up with a line that one clown or the other would say that would ultimately ruin the date. Josh Begley's joke was, wanna know if the carpet matches the drapes? Not too shabby, Josh. Not too shabby at all. I mean, I kind of did like my wanna have a 25-some joke, but again, don't want to be biased and support only my own jokes. Fantastic joke from Josh Begley. That is it for the Ujokes Extras, and that is also it for this week's Ujokes podcast. Yeah, I know, the time just flies by really quickly. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Do not forget, the next Ujokes show is coming on Monday, January 18th, but bear in mind, the next Ujokes podcast. Weird paradox, I know, with calling it Ujokes Weekly, but the podcast being every other week. Ha ha ha, I get the gist. But anyway, next Ujokes show, Monday, January 18th. The next podcast won't be until Tuesday, January 26th. Keep that in mind. Till then, don't forget to stay connected with me on Twitter, Instagram, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. The account links are all in the description. Also, this is something else that I feel like I should have been mentioning on past podcasts, but there's also a Ujokes website that has been around for who knows how long, and I would recommend you check it out as well. It's ujokes.com. The link to that website will also be available in the description. Make sure you check that out as well. Anyway, thanks again for listening to Ujokes Weekly, and until we meet again, well, bye for now. See ya!